just when I think you couldn't possibly be any dumber, you go and do something like this and totally redeem yourself.
Welcome back, Internet, to another episode of Three Averagely Intelligent Dudes discussing dangerous ideas. As you can see, we have an empty seat and a Zoom call.
Yes, there's a Zoom face right here that you're looking at.
Yeah.
And the reason for that. Go ahead, tell them what the reason for that is, Rod.
Cough right on time. I got the COVID. I got the COVID. Yeah. I'm currently upstairs in quarantine in my sick room. Me, my wife, and my kid, we all got COVID. Interesting.
Yeah, and they do have mild symptoms, so nobody's like dying over here or anything like that.
This guy, like he's some doctor. How you gonna call my symptoms mild? How you gonna illegitimize my sickness? No, I'm just kidding.
Your sickness
okay, Rod, please tell the people. Do you have mild or extreme symptoms?
I mean, I'm on a podcast, so I guess we can call them mild.
I mean, you have a microphone in your mouth instead of a ventilator, so I think you're doing all right.
It's true. You seem to be breathing okay.
Yeah.
If not a bit raspy.
Yeah, no, I'm a little raspy. No, it hasn't been bad, man. This is day 4 or 5, so I'm kind of coming on the downhill of it. But I mean, even at its worst, I wouldn't have called it bad, and I think we'll talk a little bit about that today. I'll kind of give my anecdotal experience on what it's like having it.
Also very interesting that, Mac, you were in very close proximity to all 3 family members that got COVID-19, and you are seeing no symptoms or anything like that?
No symptoms. It's hard to say because of the fact that the symptoms come on so late, or they can come on earlier, so we're not quite sure where Rod caught it. He could have caught it while he was on vacation, and then it just didn't show up on the tests until he came back. We also went to a release party show for our friend, so might have caught it there, although I was also at that event, so I would have been exposed to it as well. So it's very interesting. I haven't been tested yet. My test is scheduled for tomorrow, so we shall see what the diagnosis is. I mean, I could be just asymptomatic and still have it, but as of right now, I feel perfectly fine.
Yes.
I went out. I played basketball this morning. So.
I also have been exposed through, coming over here last week for the podcast, potentially exposed me or hanging out.
They could have had it already.
But
yeah, I'm pretty sure I had it when I was at first.
Yep, and out of the 3 of us, am the only one who has had 2 doses of vaccination.
Yep.
I got the double dip of Moderna.
Double dosed,
I got
baby.
double dipped by Moderna.
Yeah.
So I also have a test scheduled for Tuesday. So
okay.
Because of the fear, and this is something that we're going to kind of dive deeper into, that even though I am vaccinated, even though I'm not likely a breakthrough case, I could still transmit. If I was to get it from you guys and not have any symptoms, and then just accidentally give it to the cashier at Smith's who's like 70 something years old or something,
Right.
So I'm definitely being a little careful in the sense of, kind of locking myself down for a day or 2 until I get this test, just because I don't want to necessarily be out there. I feel like I'm free and clear as a vaccinated person.
Yeah. Good to go.
But I don't want to just be that guy. You know what I'm saying? I don't have all the science.
I've been doing the same thing. I've been limiting how I haven't been going to the gym or anything just until I figure out what's going on, just because I don't want to I don't want to be a dick and expose anybody, but that's what we're here to talk about, baby. This is COVID-3, the return of COVID.
Yes, this is revenge of the COVID.
Yeah,
COVID-3. Yeah, it's interesting
because this will be our 3rd show.
Yeah, our 3rd approach at this. It's really cool though. It's been interesting how we've come at it every time, because it always seems to be in this different space. I think the first time was smack dab in the middle of lockdowns, and then we had another episode coming out of lockdowns, still with full mask mandates and all that stuff. And then now to be approaching it again in this weird Delta variant space where there's variants coming, but we got vaccines now too. I don't even think the vaccine was released last time we were talking about it, so. It's gonna be interesting.
No, we were not able to get them at that time.
Yeah,
they were released.
It was just for specific people. Yeah,
we were healthy.
I would love to start there because this is a really kind of hot topic with this whole thing right now. Is this vaccine and who's got it, who doesn't got it, if you should or should not be getting it, and what all that, right? And we laid out a lot of conversations about that in the last episode, and we ended that episode with all of us staunchly being like, no vaccine for me, right? Correct. So I would love to toss this up to John and explain a little bit how you moved from that not for me column into being the only fully vaccinated one of us.
So we talked about it, and we saw that the number would likely be between 10 and 20% of Americans would just opt out. No matter how much herd immunity, how much whatever. That was the polling essentially. And I don't usually trust polling, but it seemed like it would be about right. Somewhere around 20% of people will be like, fuck that, I'm going to Harris Teeter to get my eggs.
Yeah. And, good callback.
And for me, last time we were talking about it, it wasn't widely available to like young people where I could just go to the fucking Sam's Club and get yanked. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I was like, not really feeling it. I wasn't going to go to the VA or pay money, or even if it was free, I wasn't necessarily going to go out of my way.
Right.
Then I started traveling a little bit, going to LA a lot from Vegas, doing a lot of movement. And I was like, I want to see older people. I want to meet my girlfriend's grandparents from more than 10 feet away. I want to be in the same room as these people. People that are in their 80s, people that are in their late 50s, people that are immunocompromised. I want to be able to talk without a mask on and have that connection that you have with people where they see your mouth moving. That's very important to I'm one of those people. I'm not big on the telephone call. I'm not even big on the video call. Definitely not big on the text, because I just don't feel like I communicate properly through those formats to where you get what I'm trying to say, and misrepresentation is like a pet peeve of mine.
Right.
So a lot of factors were pointing me towards you need to be able to interact with people on a day-to-day basis without a mask on and without the fear of them dying. So I was like, well, I've been vaccinated for all these other things. I've got the anthrax vaccination or the anthrax shots. I've got smallpox shots. I've got polio vaccine. I've got all these vaccinations.
Yeah.
This one, it was a little rushed. I was a little worried, still am, about some of the different factors involved in it. But ultimately, it was, do I want to continue living my life in a normal way, or do I want to place unnecessary restrictions on myself because of a fear that I would hurt other people?
And I remember that being your stance last conversation, too. You were like, look, at the moment, I'm not going to get it, but if the pressure gets too great on me, I don't really give a fuck. I'll just get it so I can make my life as easy as possible. I remember you saying that, too.
And it was very easy. I literally just walked up, got the jab, 30 days later, came back, got the jab.
Yeah, and it really hasn't changed your life at all. Cause
it's a 30-day wait between two of them?
For Moderna, it was you get it 30 days later, you get the second dose.
Okay.
Yeah. Because, I'm still in that camp, too, as well. I just haven't had that pressure come on to me yet. But I was like, if it means traveling or going to my concerts and all that stuff, I'm just not willing to burn all those pleasures to fight some, like you said, to fight against them. Fuck it, take my stupid body then.
Fear of vaccine requirements and mandates. Not being able to do the things I want to do is essentially what got me to do it.
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of the boat that I'm in still. It's as much, I like to talk a lot of shit, but honestly, I want to still go do stuff. I was actually kind of worried because Bill Burr, we went to go see the Bill Burr show earlier this month, I guess at the very early last month in July, and he's real big on people getting the vaccine, and he's not a super hardcore lefty, but he was like, look, the scientists, he's like, I'm a dummy. Just listen to what the fucking scientists say. And so I was like, man, I should look in my tickets and make sure we don't have to be vaccinated for this shit. I didn't know how that was going to go down. If the artist could tell you, hey, I want the people at the show to be vaccinated or whatever. So that didn't end up being the case. But had it been, I might have gotten vaccinated. He's one of my all-time favorite comedians. So it's not like I'm super opposed to it. And I'm not really one of those people that's like, oh, they're going to put nanobots in the vaccine and they're gonna fuck with you. I'm not really afraid of the vaccine.
I'm that guy.
I would say that part of me is that guy. I definitely have a romantic tilt towards the idea of maybe they're putting nanobots in me. But I've always been one of the people that was like, fuck it. You want to experiment on me? You want to put RNA inside you want to permanently alter my DNA? CRISPR, baby, let's go.
Bro.
Yeah, if I could, I'd be down for something like that if I could decide what it was.
Yeah.
But if the government's over here just backdoor CRISPRing me, I don't know about that. Yeah, I don't know about all that.
I just don't know what it is. I'm like this, and I have a logical. I love how you said romanticized it, right, John? Because that's where I'm at with it too. Like, I have this logical side of me that's like, I doubt it, man. You know what I mean? Like, the likeliness of that just going down is so slim, and it's just so conspiratorial. I guess is that a word?
It's like movie shit.
Yeah,
I love to make
it's
up
definitely
words
the
in this
move
stuff.
in the movie version. They're putting
Right. But I always carry this skepticism with me. Like, I can't shake it, and I've actually been talking about it a little bit recently because of this whole thing. Like, now I'm like, should I get vaccinated? Like, having got it and all this stuff now, and seeing what's up, and kind of being a little worried sometimes. Like, not necessarily for me because I can feel what I'm going through, but like my kid, dude. I gotta tell y'all this story. It's so fucking funny, man. My kid is a avid, like, she likes it, like she's like does it on the dip. She sleepwalks a lot, right? And so she's like hit us with some creepy sleepwalking time. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, she loves to sleepwalk on the weekend.
Can't get enough of it.
All right,
It's a funny way of saying that.
Yeah. So she sleepwalks, but she hasn't done it in a long time, right? And so nothing. But she hit us with the weirdest case of sleepwalking I've just ever seen in the middle of this whole COVID situation. So we're sick. All of a sudden, she just comes busting up in the room like this zombie, like her arms out and stuff. She's like just staring off into space. And I'm like, yo, brother, you good? Like, what's up? And I thought she was trying to punk me at first. You know what I mean? And I was like, she fine, dude. She like really just was not there. And she started saying all this stuff. Beyonce told me to put the water in my pinky. And I'm like, what are you talking about, bro? And so it was just this weird. It was weird. She was just rambling on about this like nonsensical type stuff. And I could feel like it was like sleepwalking, but at the same time, I heard delirium and things like that can be like a warning sign of like a really bad case of COVID, right? So it kind of scared me. I'm like, yo, is she just sleepwalking, or is this like COVID's fucking with her brain? I don't know if y'all heard about this, but supposedly it can have some like neurological effects and stuff, right?
Absolutely.
So
that
got me, yeah. And so that really got me thinking about my position, which was kind of like jokey and reckless before. But then I'm like, I don't care. But dude, if my kid dies of COVID, how am I gonna feel about this? You know what I mean? Like, how am I gonna feel about this? Like, oh, I don't care. Fuck the vaccine because of this romanticized idea about nanobot type shit, right? And then my kid in reality dies though. Like, it's not gonna be funny anymore, right? You know what I'm saying? So I start rethinking this whole situation. But I can't shake that skepticism. Iraq and Afghanistan really fucked me up in that way. I've talked about this before. Like, that's what it fucked me up. Is it made me not trust my government anymore.
You peeked behind the curtains.
Right. Like, I just like it's been proven to me, to my face, that they'll lie to you. And just like this too. Like, they really had me in the hype. Like, y'all, I was out there fighting these terrorists. You know what I mean? Like, I was really out there like, these guys are bad guys and I should murk these motherfuckers, and like all this stuff. And then to, and now get to see hindsight and nothing happened. We didn't find the fucking bombs. We didn't, you know what I mean? So it gave me this skepticism where I'm just like, I don't trust these motherfuckers. So I still can't really bring myself to be like, oh yeah, it is what they say it is,
Yeah, it's, well, I mean, how do you trust the people who told you not to mask at the very beginning of this whole thing? Like, literally, like that clip of Fauci is so hilarious. To like, I watched Dave Rubin he found this Twitter video where somebody had mashed up all these times where Fauci said something and then said the opposite, like just a short time amount later.
People should not be walking around with masks. Let me just state for the record that masks are not theater. Wearing a mask might make people feel a little bit better, and masks are protective, but it's not providing the perfect protection that people think that it is.
Mark, there has not been any indication that putting a mask on and wearing a mask for a considerable period of time has any deleterious effects.
There are unintended consequences. People keep fiddling with the mask and they keep touching their face.
And can you get some schmutz sort of staying inside there?
Of course.
You do not need to wear a mask indoors if, in fact, you've been vaccinated. Good that you're vaccinated, but in a situation where you have people indoors, particularly crowded, you should wear a mask.
So even if you are vaccinated, you should wear a mask. If, in fact, you are vaccinated, fully vaccinated, you are protected, and you do not need to wear a mask outdoors or indoors. When the children go out into the community, you want them to continue to wear masks.
You know, if you look at children outside, particularly when they're with the family, walking down the street, playing a game or what have you, don't have to wear a mask.
The pediatric, the Academy of Pediatric actually makes that recommendation that children should be wearing masks from 2 years old onward.
And you're asking now, if your child is a member of your household, can you walk outdoors with your child without a mask? According to that chart, the answer is yes.
But the child can't, not to beat it to death.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Because now the CDC says, I mean, I think I've got this right. 1 mask is better than 0 masks. 2 masks is better than 1 mask. But you don't have to have double masks. Is that right? I mean,
it became clear that cloth coverings that you didn't have to buy in a store, that you could make yourself, were adequate. And then you want it to fit better. So one of the ways you could do it, if you would like to, is put a cloth mask over, which actually here and here and here, where you could get leakage in, is much better contained.
Are you a double masker, Dr. Fauci? It looked like you are.
And those are so funny to watch. And like the very first one is the worst one for me because like it just shows how little they think about regular people. You know, like when Fauci came out there and was like, oh, you don't need to wear masks. Masks aren't that effective, blah, blah, blah. And then like 2 or 3 weeks later came out and was like, hey, sorry, I actually had to lie to you guys because I thought that if I told you the truth that we didn't have enough masks and we needed them for the doctors, that you guys wouldn't listen and you'd go out and buy all the masks. And I'm not saying that that's not what would have happened, because if I was going to bet, I would have bet that that's exactly what would have happened. If he would come out there and been like, everybody needs the mask, but we don't have enough, so just leave them for the doctors. Yeah, most people probably would have went out and bought masks. But the fact that they think so little of you that they're like maybe if they had just been like bought all the masks first and then had Fauci come out on TV and be like, look, we're going to restock all the masks. For now, there's none. But as soon as we get them back, you all need to put them on. We had to take them for the doctors. I feel like people could understand that. Like, okay, they needed the mask for the doctors after they've already taken that option away from you. You know what I mean? But instead, they were like, we're just going to lie to these dummies.
I think you hit a great point there on the unclear messaging across all platforms. We had people in Congress being like, go celebrate Chinese New Year.
It's exciting to be here, especially at this time, to be able to be unified with our community. We want to be vigilant about what it might be on what is out there in other places. We want to be careful about how we deal with it, but we do want to say to people, come to Chinatown. Here we are. We're, again, careful, safe, and come join us.
You know, get together with your friends and family.
Come down to Chinatown. It's great.
So there's a lot of weird mismessaging, especially in the first year.
Yeah.
Now that we're in, day 600-ish of COVID, it's kind of different. Now we're getting like things that used to be a year ago insane to say that would get you shut down, like lab leak theory.
Yeah.
Now you've got people in Congress talking about lab leak theory. When you're talking about, is this the result of gain of function research? You say that a year ago, they're gonna slap a big conspiracy theorist label on you. Now that's being discussed between is it Rand Paul?
Rand Paul.
Senator Rand Paul and Dr. Fauci had an exchange where they're talking about gain of function research. And take what you will from that. There's a lot of doublespeak going on, which is a common theme with Fauci as well.
Yeah.
But it sounds like American money was funding gain of function research. And gain of function research, if you're not aware, is just making viruses stronger so that we could save us.
Right.
Yeah.
Profit?
It's researching. It's researching ways to make viruses not only stronger but also more infectious and susceptible to human transmission. That's like a broad definition. In that exchange with Rand Paul, Fauci was trying to narrow it down to a very specific, minute definition of gain of function research, which is just making it stronger. But he was trying to play it all like he was making that point as if, oh, well, the gain of function research or the research that we funded didn't create COVID-19. And Rand Paul was like, that's not what I'm asking you. I'm just asking you if the money that you sent to the NIH that was then sent to this Chinese lab was in gain of function research. I don't care whether or not they were working on COVID-19.
Yeah.
That's irrelevant to what I'm asking you. But Fauci was like, Fauci's a really good politician. I mean, he's technically the highest paid person in the federal government. He makes more than the president of the United States.
That man Teflon Don those leak emails. Like, didn't nobody give a fuck.
Dude, what the fuck? Yeah. Can you imagine if Trump had some fake, like, I mean, he had multiple counts of shit come out and they were like, this is the end of Trump. Everybody was like, man, that's not even Fauci's emails.
Man,
like,
did you see him sitting next to Olivia Rodrigo? He's a good guy.
Yeah, and it's like, bro. He was telling his friends, "Don't worry about the mask; they don't really work."
That man's
like, what the fuck?
That man's politicking like a
anybody
a
that thinks that Dr. Fauci is like a doctor, like he doesn't see patients, he doesn't prescribe medication. He's a full blown politician. He's just got a PhD, so they call him doctor.
Damn, crazy! Did not know that.
He hasn't seen. I mean, I'm sure.
So he's not
when he first
MD?
started.
Oh.
No, I think he might be an MD. I don't know. Let's look that up.
Yeah,
I don't know if he's a PhD or.
He's become a cultural phenomenon in the past. I mean, since this pandemic broke out.
I just wanted to make this one point, though, before we kind of moved on. But you're right, though. As I was talking about that vaccine, like, I was talking about nefariousness, but that I didn't even take into consideration just stupidity, too, though, you know?
Yep.
Like, you just don't know if people are getting it right, either. So it's just like...
Yeah.
That's
so it looks like Fauci is an MD. And I forgot about this. He was actually like this big, he was really big in the 80s when the AIDS thing was popping off. And it's really funny. You should go and check out his predictions about AIDS. He was wildly wrong about that. Wildly wrong, like by millions of deaths.
Jeez.
Yeah,
so see what I'm saying?
Looking good. He's 0 for 2, basically.
So hindsight's a motherfucker, you know what I mean? So I'm just like, yo, I still can't really bring myself there, but it's been fascinating.
Well, now you got, you'll probably have natural immunity. So, and from some murmurings that I've heard, like apparently the efficacy of the vaccines dwindles from the time that you get it over, like, that's why they're talking about booster shots. Like they're saying, like, you'll have to get a booster shot because the trials were so short term. They didn't know whether or not it would be like the polio vaccine, like where once you got it, it's good and you're like totally clear forever. But according to this there was a Swiss study of Israeli hospital data, and they found that basically from the time that you get your second dose to about 6 to 7 months later, it drops from like 90% effective rate to like a 45 to 50% effective rate as far as keeping you from getting the disease. Right. It's still really effective as far as like keeping you from getting really, really sick. But you can, which is now something that's happening with the Delta variant, is like these breakthrough cases where people who are vaccinated are testing positive. But again, it's like the vaccines work pretty well. Like you're not really, there's a very low percentage of people who are breakthrough cases that also have hospitalizations. And what's
good about, this information is we do actually have these numbers in the CDC document. So when we start kind of digging more into this, we can look at, like down to the 10, like what the CDC is putting out when it comes to these. They actually cite, I believe, some of these studies you're talking about.
Here's my point, though. When they were telling you to go get the vaccine, right? When it came out and they were like, yo, it's time, everybody go get the vaccine. Did you ever hear any talk about the 6-month efficacy rate? Like nobody said, it's going to start dying down a little bit. Or the fact that like, yo, you'll still get it. You just, it won't be as bad. Right? Like that they didn't know any of that shit when they stuck you with it originally, right? And so my question is like, what else did they not know when they stuck you originally?
Now, this is another great point too. These CDC slides were leaked. So this was not meant to be public. It was leaked from someone on the inside. Now, did they do it on purpose? Who knows? But in this document, they say we have to change the communication because we were telling people that breakthrough cases on vaccinated people were rare and sparse. Right. When in reality, they're a given percentage, and they're going to rise as vaccinations rise. So the more vaccinated people there are, the more breakthrough cases there are going to be. Sure. That's going to correlate. And so now when people are like, I didn't realize that vaccinated people could still get COVID. It's like, well, they didn't really know either, but now they're saying in their internal documents that they need to change their messaging real fucking fast. Right. And that's a common theme, messaging being changed. It's just been constantly happening.
Yeah, and I think this is the problem is like the messaging changing is not necessarily surprising because, and usually what the defense that the CDC or Fauci will use is that, well, the science changes. Once we learn more about it, then we have to change what we say. And it's like, yes, that's true. And this is an instance where that's actually true. Like, they realizing, okay, breakthrough cases are a thing. We have to let people know that. That's true. But a lot of the times over the last year and a half when they were changing their minds, there really wasn't any new science coming out to make these changes. There was the stuff that we already knew. And then there was, rising case numbers. But like, I remember when the cases started going up and they were saying like, oh, the second wave's coming. But the cases were going up, but the hospitalizations and the deaths were either flatlined or going down. And I was like, okay, so, well, if the cases are going up, but nobody's dying from it, then do we really need to lock down again? Do we really need to, maybe you can make an argument that we still need to mask to keep the cases from going up that high. But it seems like now, like at a certain point in the middle of last year, people were like, we can't have any more cases. And it's like, well, that's kind of a dumb goal because we really, if that's the case, then we can't do anything out here. And like, if we keep getting cases, but people aren't dying that bad, then it's like, okay, like, we have to live with a certain amount of risk in our lives. Every time you get in a car, you have a really good chance of getting in an accident and being seriously injured or dying. I think it's like 40,000, like on average, like 40,000 people a year die in car accidents every year. Now, obviously, 300,000 people have died so far from COVID, so it's like way more than that. But, I mean, how many years have 40,000 people been dying in cars? And nobody's like, we need to lock down these fucking cars because y'all motherfuckers are dying out here.
But I mean, that brings up the transmissibility argument. But I definitely want to ask Rod about this. Rod, do you think this is a slippery slope? Because I remember talking about COVID a year ago, and we were like, you ain't putting a fucking mask on me. And now look where we are.
And we're just making more and more concessions to it.
A lot.
Dude, and that's what I said. That's what scares me, right? That's fear. When fear is being used as a persuasive point, right? That's where I started getting real sketch because that's how I know that it's meant to manipulate, right? Like we talked about this in like one of our other podcasts. That's one of the jokes. Like, if you want to make some type of change out here, you better get people scared or else they're not going to get involved, So I do think it's a slippery slope, and that's what I say. I think that is sketchy to me. The more people try and persuade me, the more I feel like I don't want to do it. Right? Like, just because
I hate it when the government comes out and tells you got to put this on or you got to take this shot, and that ultimately is like what's like. It's not like Mac was saying, like you take inherent risk. Like to bring it back to what you were saying, you get in a car, you might get killed. Like it's an inherent risk. So just living your life around this pandemic is an inherent risk, but the fear motivator where the government is literally telling you, the president is literally telling you, hey, you don't have to die. You can just get vaccinated. And it's like, whoa, are you saying like that's, it's spooky, man. Like I don't like the government coming out and talking like that.
Yeah, here's the clip right here.
Yeah, we're going to play this clip real quick
Joe Biden
of
clip.
Biden talking about unvaccinated people.
Last month, a study showed that over 99% of COVID-19 deaths have been among the unvaccinated. 99%. This is an American tragedy. People are dying and will die who don't have to die. If you're out there unvaccinated, you don't have to die. Read the news. You'll see stories about unvaccinated patients in hospitals. As they're lying in bed, dying from COVID-19, they're asking, Doc, can I get the vaccine? And the doctors have to say, sorry, it's too late. Right now, too many people are dying, or watching someone they love dying and saying, if I just got vaccinated, if I just. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah. So you know, he's talking about, like people on in the hospital with COVID, and they're asking the doctors if they can get the vaccine, and it's like, well, it's too late now. It's like, yeah, that's true, but the problem with this, the way that he's talking, like the rhetoric, like I understand his logic, and I'm not saying that he's not lying. Like people are dying, and it's a tragedy, but there's also lots of people dying from other things that the government could be telling people to do certain things that would prevent that. Like, nobody in the government's out here talking about eating healthy and taking multivitamins and helping your immune system. Not even related to COVID. Like, it was just like so many people die of obesity or heart disease and stuff like that. And it's the number one killer every other year other than 2020 when COVID hit. Heart disease is the number one killer. And it's
we've been down that road. I think that's kind of straw manning it though. You know what I'm saying? Like just
well, this is the problem though, is that, and it ties into what John was saying as far as the using the fear to, back in the day, people were like, we're not putting on masks. Now we're like, oh, we're not getting vaccines. And then, no, we're not going to the gulags in 10 years. Like, it's the small concessions that can, like, that he was the slippery slope that he was talking about. And so it's like, if you, the problem is that if they're not concrete on the logic, like, you're right, he's making a good point in the pandemic times, but then you have this, like, here, I'll bring up the Bill de Blasio part, because the Bill de Blasio, this kind of, it didn't scare me because I'm not really scared of Bill de Blasio, but like, it's a little bit alarming to hear people talking like this, because you can start to like, yeah, go ahead.
No, I just want to say about that creepiness with the Biden thing before we move on to the Blasio thing, because it's fear mongering. I see it both sides. Like, I see it both sides, because what he's saying and the way he's like just passionately telling the story and all that stuff, like, that's all persuasive technique, right? Like, they're trying to get you to get the vaccine, obviously, through all this stuff, through the Liberty Rodrigo shit and everything. Like, they have an agenda, and it's like, get you vaccinated. So it's like, in one sense, I'm like, it's gross and it's scary because they're trying to manipulate you. But then also, it's like, if you need people to do something, how is he supposed to get them to do it? You know what I mean?
Yeah. What's
like,
what messaging is he supposed to use? Yeah.
Like, if you really do, like, if I'm trying to persuade my friend to do something that's beneficial to them, I have to start also appealing to them in different ways, right? But the only reason I also have that point is because I have thought what he's saying. Like, I don't like the way he's going about it as the president of the United States and, like, passionately, but he's also not embellishing, right? Or making up, like, some type of fake scenario. Like I told you guys, I did think that. I said, man, what if my kid dies from this disease, and all because I was like against this idea of getting back? You know what I mean? Like, I had that regret feeling for a minute where I was just like, what if this doesn't pan out well for me? Am I going to feel like a fucking dumbass for not having got the vaccine? Like, will it have been worth it to me? So I like the appeal that he's putting out there, I feel like is kind of warranted, but I just, it's sensationalism as well. And that's kind of like sketchy too. So.
Yeah. The language is out of all of it.
Right.
The language is the thing that just bothers me the most, when he's like, unvaccinated people, you don't have to die. And it's like, you're assuming that unvaccinated people are going to die.
When
that's a correct assumption.
But you dying from COVID, like, the chances of you dying from COVID are so slim. Even
so
he could have said,
he
could have said, you don't have to get sick, or you don't have to, whatever. But to make it seem like
that's not as persuasive
if you don't. Yeah, it's true, right?
Yeah.
True.
Well, and so I think that this Bill de Blasio clip, is going to highlight what my point in this is. And it's like, yes, we're all, like, you're right. I wasn't giving him the credit that he deserved for what he was saying, because it was totally true. Like, getting the vaccine does significantly lower your chances of dying from COVID, which are already kind of low, but it does significantly lower them, especially the higher in age you go and the more immunocompromised or comorbidities you have. It's very, very effective. But my problem with it is that the problem I have is that I don't trust that they actually give a shit about people dying. Because if they did, they would be saying lots of other things, and they would have been saying them for decades now, because we know all these other ways to keep people alive, but they don't really care about that.
They're not concerned with you dying. That's the funny.
They're not concerned with you dying.
No,
exactly.
No, they're concerned with you killing them. Right?
Yeah, I think this is a transmissible disease.
It's the transmissibility of this. Like, alcoholism isn't transmittable, right? Like, you killing yourself over there, heart disease, like, all these things. I think that's what kills that conversation. Because I used to make these same points too. Well, how come they don't care as much about this or that? It's because those things are all within your individual control. Like, if you look
at like car crashes, like, they control that in some way by making you have insurance, by penalizing you if you drive crazy. the rules of the road,
speed limits. Yeah.
So there's like a lot of, they are trying to stop motor vehicle deaths in their own way. Yeah, I
feel you. But this kind of speech from Bill de Blasio is what really alarms me. We're gonna go ahead and take a look at this clip. This is on MSNBC, and this is after Bill de Blasio. They brought him on to discuss. He just enacted a citywide mandate of vaccines for all city workers. So not just federal, like not just state employees, but anybody that works in like the garbage, waste management. If you're a police officer for the city of New York, like you have to be vaccinated or you have to be tested like once or twice a week is what he said. So they brought him on to talk about that. And then he made this statement and I was like, woo, I don't know about that, de Blasio.
Really quick before you go on, you made a great point there. He's saying you need to get vaccinated or jump through this hoop of getting tested every week.
Yeah, they're creating incentives.
They're creating they're making it very hard not to get vaccinated. And that's something I want to go back to. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Idea of vaccinations. We've got to shake people at this point and say, come on now. We tried voluntary. We could not have been more kind and compassionate as a country. Free testing everywhere you turn, incentives, friendly, warm embrace. The voluntary phase is over. We can keep doing those things. I'm not saying shut it down. I'm saying voluntary alone doesn't work. It's time for mandates because it's the only way to protect our people.
Mm-hmm. So now just replace vaccines with anything else that man wants you to do.
Yep.
We are done with voluntary is what he said. We are done asking you to do things that you don't want to do. We're just going to make you do them now.
Can you see Americans folding to that?
What's that?
Not American.
What's that feeling you get when you see like a icky spider, or like when like you saw Conor McGregor snap his leg, and you're like, that little
disgust. I don't know. It's like a
skin crawly feeling. As soon as I heard him say that shit about the voluntary phase is over.
Yeah, exactly. And that's my point. Is like the only problem. Like yes, right now. It's in the context of this pandemic, people will defend that kind of a statement. But who's to say that it ends there? Who's to say that they don't start doing that for climate? I mean, like, this is something that's being kind of tossed around in the online spaces. I haven't really heard any, like, politicians really talk about it very much. But, like, climate lockdowns. Like, when the climate starts, when they start being like, hey, there's too much CO2, we're going to lock everybody down. Because I remember, like, we talked about it in, I think, the second episode, but when the severe lockdowns were in and you couldn't go anywhere except, like, the grocery store, the air in LA was crisp. It looked amazing. You could actually see the mountains in the horizon. It wasn't just like a silhouette through the haze. Who's to say they're not going to start doing that? Who's to say they're not going to start, like, you could just see the second, third, fourth level reasons that they might come out and be like, voluntary's over.
Dude, China, there was a city, they just had a huge outbreak of the Delta variant. I wish I could remember the name of the city. It starts with the N. Maybe you guys know. Anyway, point is, they immediately enacted mandatory testing for all of their citizens, and some like 90 million people. They just come back, like, tested all of them like twice.
Wow.
And I was like, whoa, that's crazy, because they just did that. They just round you up. Hey, everybody take the day off work. You're not going to do anything today, but go get vaccinated or go get tested for this Delta variant and stuff. And I'm like, yo, like you said, like, you forget that that's how it operates in other countries.
Yeah.
And you see where we could be heading in that sense, where they're trying to, like, say, like, we'd like that kind of ability too, to just snatch up all our citizens and be like, you will get this done.
Yeah, that's something really, that you see a lot of people on the American political left. They kind of are like, well, if we could just be more like these authoritarian regimes, where it's like this, when the state, because like in America, when the state knocks on your door, you can be like, do you have a reason for knocking on my door, state? You don't? Fuck off.
I don't want to talk to you.
But in China, when the state knocks at your door, you say, how many kids do you need? Do you need me to, like, what do you need? Like, you need me to give you one of my kids? Do I have to go to a concentration camp? Like, what do you need? I'll do it.
Please, whatever you need.
There's no saying no.
Yeah, and that's the problem, is like, I think that this scenario, this pandemic, has brought to light, or maybe brought to the surface, a lot of politicians on the left and the right. It's brought a lot of their more authoritarian leanings to light. You know, like you start to see it coming out. And I was just talking to Rod earlier today before we were recording, and I was like, you know, I try not to ascribe like malice to people, because I think that we don't give enough credit to how much your subconscious beliefs play in your decision making. But I think when something like this pops off and you have people in mid-level government roles who can make really high-level decisions about what people are allowed to do, and those people have subconscious leanings towards authoritarianism, it's not crazy to think that at the first moment of panic, their first reaction is going to be lock everybody down, put everybody in masks, or make sure nobody drives because we need to save the climate,
or get everybody vaccinated.
Or we're going to start coming to your house and jabbing you. You have no choice.
I would love to bring you to this document, the Marquette University COVID-19 document there. We don't have to read a word for word, but within this document that we're going to link to, they're talking about coming back to the university in the fall. And what you're talking about, like the left kind of like taking this moment and embracing authoritarianism. Now you have universities who are, you know, funded by the government to an extent. They're out here saying like, well, you don't have to get vaccinated, but what you do have to do is provide us with a reason. You have to sign a document admitting, it's in here, I believe, one down a little bit further. You have to acknowledge the availability of the vaccine. You have to acknowledge the public good of being vaccinated. You have to acknowledge the personal risks of not being vaccinated. And then you have to sign that form to request the exemption based on your personal beliefs. So you have to jump through hoops and essentially admit things like a fucking plea deal.
Yeah,
this is like what they did.
School.
This is what they did to the POWs in Vietnam. They were like, they would seriously, like, if you go and if you look into this, the prisoners in Vietnam or in Korea, what they would do is they would take them and they would get them. They would just start by having them, like a group session with you have like a Vietnamese dude who's leading it, and then all these American POWs, and they'd basically just say something that America's done that's pretty heinous, and they'd be like, you can agree that that's not very nice, right? And then, you know, the military people would be like, yeah, concessions, little
to get
concessions.
You to start make small concessions.
What does it matter if you acknowledge that the vaccine is available? Of course the vaccine's available. How else would I fucking get it if it wasn't available? I'm refusing it, so it has to be available.
It's number two for me, dog.
Oh, yeah. You have to acknowledge that you are being a dick right now and not getting the vaccine. It's like, fuck you, dude. Like, I don't want it.
You're not going to get it. We want you to state out loud that you think it's a good thing, though. You definitely think it's a good thing.
And this is just one university. This is just one university, and this is just one of their many, many facts and myths that they talk about. They talk about essentially vaccine passports on campus. They talk about how if someone comes up to you, do you have to like show them that you've got the vaccine? Do you have? Are you required to show them your card?
And one of the things, here it is right here. Like all other required student vaccine records, your COVID-19 vaccination status will only be recorded and maintained via the secure medical clinic patient portal. Once your vaccination forms or exemptions are submitted, no student will be asked or compelled to share their vaccination status beyond that.
But a little bit further down, you have this here. Additionally, for those who are vaccinated, once your vaccination forms are submitted and verified, you'll no longer be required to complete the daily COVID check screening process. Instead, you'll automatically receive a green badge instead. The green badge will be required to enter libraries, dining halls, recreation facilities, take a shit, go to class,
so this is exactly what they said you wouldn't have to do.
Exactly.
Like, it's like, you don't have to tell us.
As long as you show a green badge.
We'll just put this little green badge on your lapel and everybody will know.
You don't have to show us your actual vaccine record. You just have to show us your green badge.
We just have to put a star on your chest that says Juden.
Yeah, wow. What the fuck?
Crazy.
Hey, I gotta just time out everybody. That's sketch. Okay, I don't give a fuck what side you're on and how you slice it, y'all. This shit is sketch.
And that's double speak right there. One paragraph saying one thing, and then the paragraph directly underneath it contradicting it.
Because they're trying to get the sauce without creating the backlash, right? Like you said, they don't want to come out and tell you we're going to make you do it, because they know as soon as you say that, there's a lot of cats out here who are going to rile up against that. But they want to, like you said, just shift it and double speak it a little bit to where they're like, we're not doing that. We're not making you do it. What are you talking about? Yeah. We're just kind of like,
they're giving you the old Fauci spin.
Right? Yeah. Because I do want to give them some credit here. It's hard. Damn, I wish we wouldn't have taken it here before I got to give them the credit, but I got to, right? Like sometimes I don't think of it nefariously, right? Like think of it, and this actually kind of only hit me when we were talking about how, you got to persuade them in some way, like it's like being a parent, like I don't think that this is when you're talking about authoritarianism and like them, like just having an authoritarian leaning, right? Sometimes it'd be like this. You are an authoritarian. Like you find yourself in a position of power, wherever that be a politician or in my case, I'm going to use an example as a father, right? And sometimes, dude, like parenting, you just want your kids to do what you're telling them. You hate explaining it, right? Like we've all been here. Like do it because I said so.
Why?
Right? Like sometimes it's just it's frustrating. It's just fucking. You just get frustrated. You're just like, look, I know what's best. I know what the fuck I'm talking about here. Just do what I fucking tell you to do.
Yeah, we all have authoritarianism in us.
Right? Like it's more, to me, it's more frustration and laziness than it is evilness, right? Like as you're trying to persuade all these people, and like he said, we've been giving y'all candy, we've been I brought Olivia Rodrigo. Don't you like Olivia? I brought her here. Like I'm
free
trying
Chick-fil-A. Like what all do you motherfuckers
vaccinated?
And you're still just throwing a temper tantrum in the store. Eventually, you just want to just snatch him up by the back of the neck and be like, "You don't do this shit because I'm bigger than you."
Like, exactly. And so like when we look at this, like I don't think that any of the people that enacted these measures at this university, or Bill de Blasio for doing what he did in New York, I don't think that they're bad people. The problem is that the Nazis didn't think that they were bad people either.
Speak back,
like we all talk about Nazis as if they were like some of the most evil people in history. Which, I
said speak back. I was preach.
Yep.
Oh yeah. So yeah, it's not like all like Hitler and all of his followers were like, yeah, we're such evil, maniacal bastards, and we're just out here to fucking. They thought that they were doing good things.
They created another.
Yeah, like they were just trying to solve what they saw as problems in their society, and they diagnosed it falsely as the Jews. It's the Jews are our problem. We'll get rid of them, and then we'll be good.
Or in this case, the unvaccinated.
And so the problem is that if you just create this group of people, they're like, look, this group of people is really fucking our shit up right now. We just need to get rid of them.
Yeah.
Either that be via vaccination or via death. Like those are two different. Obviously, they're not the same, but you can see how this line of thinking, this logic, is being brought into it. And that's why I brought that up with the Biden thing and with the Bill de Blasio thing. It's like, I'm not saying that what they're saying right now is a bad thing, because they're true. Like, most of the people dying are unvaccinated and all that stuff. But if they continue with this logic, I could see other scenarios where they apply this logic to that I will not be agreeing with.
Now, something I want to kind of ask Rod here. So we're talking about this, them having the power now to kind of like force you into these positions. Now we heard Bill de Blasio say, and we heard Joe Biden say, oh, we're thinking about making it mandatory, and they always slip in that you just have to get tested every week.
Yeah.
Now, how long, and I want to ask you this, like I think we can all agree that private companies can make you show some sort of identification, or in this case, vaccination. Like if Disney parks say you have to be vaccinated to come to our park, we can't say, well, this is a utility. Right. I should be able to let this is a, you know what I'm saying?
Everybody has a right to be at Disney World. Yeah. It's the happiest place on earth, goddammit.
I have a personal goddamn right.
They just pull up the most basic sign ever that we have the right to refuse service to anybody.
Yes, exactly. So now I want to ask you, Rod, how do you feel about the federal government when they weigh in on this? Because the federal government, or the government in general, state, public services, they're the biggest employer in America.
Yeah. And then they're going to do that as a individual employer, right? I mean, I don't care. I don't care. I'm always going to stand up. Like I said, they got that sign. They have the right to refuse service. You don't have to work for the feds. You don't have to. So as long as they're not barricading you from something that you have to do, Like until they say you can't drink this water unless you're vaccinated, like I don't really care. But like, so they're gonna probably push that. And we talked about this in our last episode, right? Like it's already scary because we know what they're gonna do. They're not gonna do it. They're just gonna grab their big brother lever arm, which is Coca-Cola and Facebook and Google and all them, and say, "Hey, do this for us." Like handle our light work over here, right? So they're gonna. I mean, and they're already doing that. We already talked about like there's so many ways for them to manipulate us and leverage us into this without them having to go that way. They do it every time. They do it by having Biden come out and saying you're gonna die. And the best motivator, bro, is your own homies, right? And that's what sucks. Is like we live in a culture now in a world where you don't really. It's not us versus them. They just grab your homies next to you, and then they get them to weigh on you heavy, bro. Like this fight right now that's going on between people and the like. If you are or not vaccinated is really the most tragic part of this whole scenario I've seen. I mean, we got family members fighting each other just because one of them's like pro jab and the other one's like anti jab. And that's like
absolutely. And they're politicizing it even. They're politicizing it even in an environment where the person that they point to that's like, that because the majority of people who are not going to get vaccinated, who are very adamant about it, are, let's say, 80% Republicans who supported Trump. I think that could be a fair number. Like there's a lot of people on the left that I've seen who are pro jab, and I see a lot of my friends back home who are conservative.
It's become that way.
It's become that way. It's been politicized. Mm-hmm. Yet Trump and his entire family got vaccinated. So it's like that fucking argument folds as soon as you touch it. It's a house of cards.
Yeah.
But you can't get through to somebody that is staunchly against it.
Classic tactics. I mean, Sun Tzu wrote about this fucking 4,000 years ago. Divide and conquer.
Right.
You get them fighting amongst themselves. You get them confused about what's going on around them, the people that surround them, and they're much easier to take over. And I mean, Machiavelli, all the great manipulators throughout time know that this is like grade A manipulation 101, divide and conquer. Like you want to take over a country, make the people fight each other. You don't have to fight the government. They'll do it themselves.
Yeah. And so I think we should bring this topic to kind of like a wrap because there's a lot of other things I really want to talk about, but just kind of get some of y'all like where y'all stands on that. Cause that's where I'm at with it too. Like I don't trust, I got the disease now and I told y'all like it did change my view of a lot of things. Not from the point of like fear. I'll tell you that, like I got it and I'm not really that like, I wouldn't be like necessarily afraid of getting it again. Like I'd be all right, but, I do wish that we see that though. Right. Like, I don't like the way that they're putting pressure on the other side, right? Like using the vaccinated to oppress the unvaccinated and making the unvaccinated defend themselves against, like that's what's been really weird to me. It's like, I think that for where I'm standing, the way I see it, it seems to be an individual choice. Like, do you want to be protected? Then go get yourself protected. Now we have a mechanism out there that can offer you that protection that you're looking for. But, I don't understand why we're like leaning on our neighbor to say, you also need to protect me. Like it doesn't really seem to work like that to me. So if the vaccine protects you against the virus, then you can get the vaccine or not. And if you don't, then you're putting yourself at risk, but supposedly these people are not supposed to be at risk anymore. Like that's the whole point of getting the stupid thing is they're not at risk. So if they're not at risk and then everybody else is out here, like I said, I don't blame nobody. I'm not sitting out here being like, oh, I can't believe they gave me COVID. Like, I knew I didn't get the fucking vax for a reason. So I knew that I was open and susceptible to the disease, risk I was willing to take. And so I'm like, yo, we should leave it at that. Like, you either want it or you don't. I don't understand why it's like a make them do it. Well, and that make them do it part is making me nervous.
That's why the new mask mandates make no sense. Like, the whole idea of the mask mandates now are that, oh, well, the vaccinated people have to wear masks again because they can still transmit it to unvaccinated people. And it's like, well, there's enough doses for every single person, even the children who aren't technically even allowed to get it. There's enough doses to get everybody vaccinated. So now it's up to you. Like, if you don't want to get vaccinated, fair enough. But I'm not going to put on the mask to protect you if you're not even willing to protect yourself.
Yes.
Well, I don't understand why we would do that.
I also would like to point out that, we're talking about how the mask mandates have changed and, it was take them off, put them on, all these different things. I'd like to go back to the CDC document. Within the first couple slides, there's something there where they talk about the virality of this. Scroll down maybe 2-3 more slides. Keep going. Where they talk about how actually infectious this new Delta variant is. If you want to go down just a little bit further. There's one where it has the bullet points of, keep going.
Breakthroughs.
No, it's going to show the, right here, transmission. Okay. Delta variant is more transmissible than SARS, than Ebola, than smallpox. They're saying that the new Delta variant is as transmissible as chickenpox.
Yeah. Okay. So this is interesting to me because
chickenpox.
Now that I'm looking at this chart, this is very interesting because I hadn't seen this chart. I didn't know that this had leaked yet, but I knew that the CDC came out and made their new mask recommendations based on these new studies that they found. Now, I haven't looked into the studies myself, but I have heard from right-wing people. So, it's take it with a grain of salt, but I have heard that the studies that they used to come to these conclusions really weren't good science. Like one of them was basically like this Indian study. It was a study in India, and they used, first of all, the people that they were studying were people who were vaccinated with a vaccine that is actually illegal here in America because it's not up to the FDA standards. And basically what they found from that study, which has now been retracted, I've also heard, again, I haven't confirmed all of this. This is stuff that I've heard literally within the last few hours. But I heard that study had been retracted because it really wasn't good. It was based on false premises. But also that the info that they found from that was just that people who had the Delta variant and were also vaccinated had the same viral load as people who were not vaccinated with the Delta variant. But they didn't actually do a culture test to see if that viral load was as contagious as the other people who were unvaccinated. They just have the same amount of the virus in them. And although to a dummy like me, it sounds like, well, if you got more virus, then it should be more transmissible. But apparently that's not the case. Apparently you can have lots of virus. Like if you're vaccinated and you have a lot of dead virus in your system, it's not transmissible because you can't catch a dead virus. It just happens you have dead viral particles in your mucus membrane or whatever. So I don't know about all that, but it's just like the studies are so like they're using information. And then I guess apparently the other study that they used to come to it, they didn't release the data. So it's like one of the studies was retracted and the other one, they won't let you look at it. And it's like, ooh, if that's true, that's not a good look.
But I feel like they can also use anecdotal evidence. I mean, like you don't need no study to see that like shit getting out of control, And I don't think.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the UK got the Delta variant about 2 weeks before we did. And their cases jumped up just about to the level it was last year when they were having their peak spikes. But now if you look at the UK's data, they're plummeting. Like they were up like towards 60,000 cases a day being reported. Now they're back down to like 25,000 cases and it's just dropping. So it seems like I've heard people say like what's going to happen is the Delta variant's going to come in through. It's going to catch a lot of the people that the first wave didn't get. And then it's going to go down again because the people who are susceptible to catching it will catch it. And then everybody else, and then the numbers will keep declining slowly and slowly.
The summary panel, I think it's 22, says that Delta is different from the previous strains because it's not just highly contagious, but it's also likely more severe. And that's kind of where it scared me a little bit is like the CDC is coming out and saying, not only is this way easier to catch, it's a lot more likely to be severe. Another thing they have in that, kids they say breakthrough infections, meaning that people who are vaccinated who catch the Delta variant may be as transmissible as the unvaccinated cases, which is what you were saying about the viral load. So it doesn't seem like me getting vaccinated is helping anyone other than me. So it is kind of a personal choice because if I'm vaccinated and I know, okay, Delta variant, unless I have a breakthrough infection, I'm going to be fine. Why can't I go around and touch everybody? Well, because John, you could get it, not know about it, and then give them this highly contagious, likely more severe variant. And it's like, well, God, you got me in a fucking rock and a hard place. I was like, am I vaccinated or am I a super spreader?
You're the silent spreader. It's not super spreader. You're a silent spreader.
So yeah, this is, and we're not trying to like spread misinformation. We're pointing at literal CDC documents that are fucking confusing. We're pointing at Dr. Fauci saying things that are contradictory to what he said a few months ago.
Okay, I got
these are real things.
I gotta talk about this. I sent a link to the Instagram chat. Let's just talk about confusing and misleading things. So I just keep that in mind. Click on that and then click on the second picture that you see.
That's a lot of fucking people.
That is the crowd from over the weekend of Lollapalooza.
Holy
wow.
shit.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
And so this has been circling around a lot. Everybody's been memeing this a little bit, right? Like, yeah, of course, rising Chicago things. But the crowd's insanely massive. And I just don't understand. Nobody's wearing masks. You can't convince me that. Well, actually, they just instituted the mask policy for day 3. So day
How
1,
they gonna
day
fucking
2.
enforce that?
Well, now that everybody has to wear masks. Before it was just like same thing. Like if you're unvaccinated,
Yeah, they were just spitting Molly into each other's mouths.
Yeah, I mean, but you go in there's like unless they have security littered throughout this crowd, which maybe they do, but it's like that's such a hard thing to enforce. You enter with a mask, and then you're in a sea of people, and you take your mask off.
100%. So. But it's just strange because then my friend made a joke. He was like, "What? So COVID only shops at grocery stores and goes in the area right next to
yeah,
like your restaurant."
I thought the same thing when they had the curfews and stuff. It's like COVID's out there at night, ready to get you, baby. You got to get inside.
Yeah. It's fucking strange, and it just that's what I think has been the most frustrating with this whole thing, and that makes it hard to, like you said, pick a side or know what's actually going on because it's stuff like this is allowed to go on. But then it's like, you got to wear a mask at the grocery store again, though. And it's like, well, what the fuck? Like, are we really fighting against this? Or do we?
And if they're all, even if they're all vaccinated, now you're telling me they can still spread it.
Well, if they're all vaccinated, then they're just passing it around. They should be fine.
Yeah, but then they go home and give it to grandma because everybody that's a millennial lives with their parents.
Yeah.
Well,
oh my God. So funny that you would mention that, John, because I was watching something that brought up a really good point about how we handled this whole vaccination and phase rollout. It was this dude, Dr. Pastides, I think. But he brought up this really good point, and we'll put his name here in the thing so everybody can get credit where credit's due. But he was like, I don't think we actually did this right with, vaccinating the elderly first. And he was like, I understand it's going to be kind of inflammatory or whatever, but I listened to him like, man, that's strange. First, he said, we probably should have done healthcare workers first, right? For obvious reasons. So everybody who's like in the healthcare industry and the healthcare and frontline workers first. But then he was like, but then maybe we should have actually opened it up to the younger generation first, right? Because grandma and grandpa are the least likely ones to actually disobey all of your stupid fucking rules and shit, right? Like grandma and grandpa, they're at home. They haven't left the house yet.
That's a good point.
They're still wearing fucking masks. They're
spraying down all their packages and shit.
You know what I'm saying? Like my parents had a whole COVID killing station at the front door, but then look where your kids are at. The kids are at Lollapalooza though. You know
getting fucked up. Yeah,
great point.
Yeah, they want to hang with the homies. We don't give a fuck about no mask. I'm like,
hindsight's a bitch.
Yeah, a lot of the boomers I know were literally just setting up stations in their garage. Like, we're gonna get Chinese food, but we're gonna spray it down with Lysol first.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So, and it's like weird how like, damn, that logic did not reign in the beginning, right? But that you said hindsight's a motherfucker. You start thinking about these things, you actually think them through. And your approach changes completely. You know what I'm saying? Your approach changes completely.
I remember that Trump got in trouble because he was talking about how this was the Democrats' new hoax. And then he came out and was like, no. I said the politicization of coronavirus is a Democratic hoax. He had to come out and once again, like once you say a headline, the retraction that you print on page 3 doesn't mean jack shit when you tell all your dumbass supporters that it's a hoax.
Yeah, and that's funny too. I feel like he's not using that word right either because hoax means that it's fake. So if you're saying that the Democrats are making a fake politicization, you're technically saying that they're not politicizing it.
Yeah, you're saying you're double negative yourself.
Yes, stupid idiot. Goddamn fool.
Well, because when you were talking about the older generation and them being more likely to follow the rules and stuff, like that shit makes great points.
It made great sense to me too.
Where my mind jumped to was they're the dumb motherfuckers listening to Rush Limbaugh. So I was like,
some of them, yeah.
So my brain was thinking about some of these people in their 40s and 50s who are, sitting in their garage listening to Rush Limbaugh. They're not going to be the ones that take all the precautions because they're the ones who think that it's some sort of hoax or.
They'll be listening to Glenn Beck though. Rush Limbaugh's dead.
Oh yeah, Rush Limbaugh got the Medal of Freedom from President Trump.
Yeah, well that's a bullshit medal.
But then it almost seems to still hold up logic. So why are you opening it to a group of people who don't want it when the young are also more like left leaning, more like willing and able to go get they want to. So it's like you're opening to a bunch of people who are probably staunchly against getting it anyways.
This is what happens when you make decisions based on politics. Like when you are a politician and you have to think about politics, it totally warps how your mind thinks about solutions. You think about what looks good, what sounds good, what seems. You don't think scientifically about what the best way to do it would be.
You think about your constituents.
You think about what your constituents
want.
You think about what you think your dumb constituents want.
That's what I'm trying to say.
That's what it sounds like. You think that your constituents are dumb and that they won't understand the minutia of your plan, so you have to come out here and say it's a fucking hoax. Or we have to vaccinate the elderly people first because they're most, susceptible.
Vulnerable.
But then when you actually think a couple layers deeper, you're like, well, maybe we should give it to the young people so they can stop bothering us. But
it's because there's always this idea of like you said, like what you think is right, but then in how things actually work in the real world and the reality, right? So same thing, like you had an idea of what you thought your vaccine was going to be like and how good it'd be, and then there was like a reality of like, oh, it only lasts 6 months, So it's like,
exactly.
In theory, right? It sounds like, oh yeah, let's protect the old people that are at most risk, but when you think about like how does it work in actual practice, well, your young people are probably the more likely to spread it, so maybe you should start there, but. Hindsight's a motherfucker.
Maybe you shouldn't put old people with COVID back in the old people home.
Right.
I don't know. That just seems like a.
I mean, if we just had Olivia Rodrigo, a year and a half ago, we would have solved.
Well, this would have solved. We would have fixed it immediately. We would have fixed it immediately. But this Delta variant is a sketchy motherfucker in the sense of like not only what it's doing, because I think we were talking about how it's so much more. Transmissible, it's like 80% more transmissible or 80%, but 80% of the cases out there supposedly now are Delta variant, and that happened,
the new cases.
Of course you got more vaccinations, like kind of more geared towards the alpha. We've been dealing with alpha for a while. A lot of people have already got it, maybe have immunity to it, so you can see why Delta might just be like the thing of now, but. Still, though, it's not only that. I told you I heard this term today, double mutation, right? Like in the sense of like, there's multiple other variants. I've heard of like gamma variant or something like that. Like there's like 4 different variants, which is cool. Like even Fauci said, like this is what viruses do, right? Like they do that, and so it's not like this should be like a shock. Like we knew that it would kind of happen this way. But it's kind of scary to think about how it might mutate. We don't know necessarily yet how powerful this thing is. Sometimes they start tiny. And especially if it's fucking made in some super lab where they've like created like, you know what I'm saying? It's like a fucking venom, It's
they got a sleeper cell gene in there, and then after seven variations, it kicks in and it starts killing 80% of people or some shit like that.
A spike straight out of its head and starts going like Terminator 3 on you. Like, you know what I mean? We don't know. It's kind of like you remember like old Ninja Turtle games and stuff where you beat the boss, but then the boss turns into like the super boss.
Yeah, and his health regenerates all the way back to the full, and you're like, God damn it!
Right?
Yeah,
facts.
That's not even just scary; it's likely.
It's probably going to happen, and so I kind of see where people are pushing the non-vaccinated because people are also saying like, as long as this virus is allowed to kind of keep spreading and keep mutating and keep doing that thing, like it could get sketchier, and so that's kind of their big push to be like, we need to kill this thing, and the fastest way we can think about killing it is through the vaccines,
The funny thing about that, though, like, this is why, like, the reason why you have to get a flu shot every year is because it mutates, and they have to give you a new vaccine to deal with all these new variations.
True.
But, like, nobody's really worried about, like, a super flu. You know what I mean? Like, it mutates every year. We get new flus every
There's
single
gotta be
year.
100 some flus out there.
Yeah, but nobody ever says, like, yo, we got the mother of all flus coming. Like, make sure to get your fucking flu shot because it's going to kill, like, 30% of people.
Well, all those
like
flus weren't made in the Wuhan super flu lab.
That's
Super
so when you have a lab called the Wuhan super flu
goddamn
lab,
labs, man, fucking this shit up.
I think I would be remiss without offering to the people a link to the Jon Stewart Stephen Colbert exchange.
Yes, we will put. Should we? We'll put it in the description. Have you seen this, Ron?
I haven't seen this. I haven't seen this. I would like to.
Oh, we gotta look this up.
We're gonna look at this.
We're gonna
really
look this up.
To preface this is Jon Stewart as a guest on Stephen Colbert, and he is going to talk about the Wuhan lab leak theory, which previous to essentially this conversation was not allowed to be talked about on television unless it was calling Trump a conspiracy theorist.
Right.
Was it this one that we watched, or it was like Bill Maher?
No.
Last time we saw.
We watched a Bill Maher.
Yeah, no, we
clip.
watched. It's actually funny. It's in the. It's in the side.
Oh yeah, they had their hand
no, this is we couldn't have watched this because this just happened in June.
Okay, fine. Let's see that.
Yeah.
I honestly mean this. I think we owe a great debt of gratitude to science. Science has, in many ways, helped ease the suffering of this pandemic, which was more than likely caused by science.
So, Colbert is not okay with that.
And that's kind of... Hold on one second.
You got it.
No.
He's going to spit take. Yeah, he's going to spit take.
Listen.
It's coffee. I wouldn't do that to you. I wouldn't do that to you. So what do you mean by that? Do you mean like perhaps there's a chance that this was created in a lab? There's an investigation.
A chance?
Well, but
oh my
if there was
God.
evidence, I'd love to hear it. I just don't know.
There's a novel respiratory coronavirus overtaking Wuhan, China. What do? Oh, you know who we could ask? The Wuhan novel respiratory coronavirus lab. The disease is the same name as the lab. That's just a little too weird, don't you think? And then they ask those scientists, they're like, how did this... So wait a minute, you work at the Wuhan respiratory coronavirus lab. How did this happen? And they're like, a pangolin kissed a turtle. And you're like, no, the name of your lab. If you look at the name, let me see your business card. Show me your business card. Oh, I work at the coronavirus lab in Wuhan. Oh, because there's a coronavirus loose in Wuhan. How did that happen? Maybe a bat flew into the cloaca of a turkey and then it sneezed into my chili and now we all have coronavirus. Like, come on.
Wait a second.
What about this? Listen to this.
Wait a second.
All right.
John.
He's trying to shut this down so bad.
Oh my God. There's been an outbreak of chocolatey goodness near Hershey, Pennsylvania. What do you think happened? Like, I don't know. Maybe a steam shovel mated with a cocoa bean. Or it's the chocolate factory. Maybe that's it.
That could be.
Oh, God. Wait. There's a little bit more because Stephen Colbert tries to shut it down because he's trying to kill the bit, and Jon Stewart gets up and goes at the camera to continue the bit.
I gave them all tuberculosis.
That could very well be, and Anthony Fauci and Francis Collins at NIH have said, like, it should definitely be investigated.
Don't stop with the logic and people and things. The name of the disease.
Wait a second.
Building.
Wait a second. But it could be possible. You could be right. It could be possible that they have the lab in Wuhan to study the novel coronavirus diseases because in Wuhan there are a lot of novel coronavirus diseases because of the bat population there.
I understand.
It's like the saying.
It's a local specialty, and it's the only place to find bats. You won't find bats anywhere else. Wait, Austin, Texas has thousands of them that fly out of a cave every night. Every night at dusk. Is there a coronavirus, an Austin coronavirus? No, it doesn't seem to be an Austin coronavirus. The only coronavirus we have is in Wuhan.
Yes.
Where they have a lab called, what's the lab called again, Stephen?
The Wuhan Novel Coronavirus Lab.
I believe that's the case.
And
now,
how long have you worked for Senator Ron Johnson?
Let me tell you something.
Smears.
Tries to shut him down.
Conspiracy. Here's the thing about science.
You could be right. You could be right.
But this is the problem with science.
They even try to play the
Science
music
is
and shit.
incredible,
Yeah.
But they don't know when to stop, and nobody in the room with those cats ever goes, yeah, I don't know if we should do that. Like, they're... A few years back.
I agree with you. If science can do it, they will do it.
They will do it. They're like, oh, curiosity killed the cat. Oh, okay, well, let's kill 10,000 cats to find out why. And you're like, that's what science does. They push things. They do the thing like, okay, listen to this. So a few years back.
You know, we stopped filming a long
I understand
time
that.
ago.
Can I tell you something?
He's trying to cut it. Yeah.
This is what happens. I've been...
Oh, that was a good light guy. That light guy was like, get a spotlight on that guy.
I've been alone for so long. And when I realized that the laboratory was having the same name, first name and last name, of the evil that had been plaguing us, I thought to myself,
look at Colbert just...
That's
funny.
Listen what I'm saying.
That's all we really needed, I think.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
that just proves that shows a lot of different angles there, because that is a very prominent comedian that a lot of people, especially my age, trust, shitting on Colbert and be like, no. I'm gonna give these people the truth.
Truth, yeah. Because he was definitely trying to.
Good. Oh, well, I was just saying, I remember Joe Rogan. The worst, I heard Joe Rogan talking about this little interaction, and he was like, the thing I hate the most is that Stephen Colbert is trying to kill this comedy bit. He wasn't even talking about the lab or anything. He was like, as one comedian to another comedian, you let him finish his fucking bit.
Great bit.
It's a great bit.
You know what? That's why Joe Rogan does podcasts on the internet, though. He doesn't do primetime television. You don't just run the bit.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's why he has 3-hour-long conversations about, that's his whole thing is let the thing go
for 25 minutes if he wants to. They can just
and Colbert's like, yo, I got 18 other talking points that my producers want to get, so you gotta speed this up, dog.
Yeah, Pfizer gives us all the commercial money, buddy.
You know what I'm saying? Not to mention,
you're really hurting me right now.
Yeah, you can make a little side nod joke at something like that, but you can't go on a whole bit about it. You know what I mean? Or else people are gonna really backlash is serious out here, though.
Yeah, and I mean, how long before this isn't a joke anymore? You know, how long before the messaging changes to where this is what happened?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We talk about it. I hate the term slippery slope, but we've been talking about this from the beginning with the masks and now the vaccinations and now our information. Are they just going to slip this in on us? Dude,
as if we needed another reason to be at odds with China, too. It's
exactly.
not a good look.
Real.
It's not a good look.
It's not good. It's not going to help anything. And that's the problem is people want this to come out because they think oh, it's going to help. Like don't get me wrong. I think if this is what happened, if it was a lab leak, then that's what should come out. But I don't think it's going to help anything. It's not going to make our relationship with China any better.
If you're playing, keep it on the low.
Keep it on the low.
Oh, what a great reference.
Damn, that's a good one.
No, dude. I don't.
My lungs can't take it anymore.
Don't want to.
So
I don't want to go to war.
But you can just see. How just stating an optional, an other side of the story, just makes them recoil. Like you're pouring water on that wicked witch of the West.
You cursed rat! Look what you've done! I'm melting! Oh.
She's like,
you're salting the slug.
Yeah, they run away immediately.
And it's dude, you what happened to the liberals? The liberals were supposed to be the people that were like, look, we're gonna have this discussion. I may not agree with you, but we're gonna hash it out. That's gone now. There's not that many people like that left. Even on the right, a lot of these people, especially when it comes, I'm not gonna take it to the big tech, but big tech, right-leaning people do not want to hear a conversation that has anything to do with like, well, you know, maybe we should give them the benefit of the doubt. They're like, no, fuck those guys. Those guys are assholes. They're stopping my First Amendment rights and shit.
Yeah.
It's like, bro, like that's not really what's happening. Like I get it. You feel slighted, but can we please have a civilized adult conversation?
We're gonna have like 7 warnings slapped underneath this fucking video too. That's what's so cool.
Oh yeah,
%, dude. It's a given. It's crazy how many variations of the word too. Like you could just be like, yeah, I got the vid, and you'll still get the sticker. Like I tried to say schmack schmeen, and they still try to.
The algorithm. Those algorithms are good. They're not just looking for words. They also understand context.
Oh yeah. You could have it in text in your story. You could just have the word COVID in there, and they're gonna find it. And it's creepy.
This brings me right back to CancelBot. I can't. There's gonna be a time in the very near future where somebody could just hit a button and it just goes through everything you've ever done or said, and is like, here's all the cancelable times that he spoke out of turn.
Yeah. That's why it's so funny when like I remember when I used to live in Texas and I'd have to buy my weed from like a weed dealer, and they'd always want me to like. They never wanted you to like text them like, yo, can I come pick up some weed? And it's like, bro, they know you're selling weed. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like you are such a fly in the ointment that they don't give a shit about you. Stop making my life difficult. Like, can I come get some weed? Like you know,
saying grass is gonna
call them emeralds. And I'm like, oh, so now you're an emerald dealer. Like, that's so much better. It's like, oh, that's amazing.
Almost spit coffee everywhere, dude. But I would love to take this conversation and expand it a little bit. You know, because I guess we've been talking mostly in the context of the United States and stuff. And then I came across an interesting statistic earlier as I was getting ready for this episode. And and it kind of blew me up. It kind of blew my mind a little bit because, you know, we talked a little bit about how China's handling their situation and stuff. But we rolled that little video I have pulled up. It's from DW News. And they said something in here, brought something to light for me that I hadn't thought about. And it makes this whole conversation a little more interesting. Go ahead.
The World Health Organization says the world is in danger of losing hard-won gains in the fight against COVID-19. It says the highly transmissible Delta variant is spreading in more than 2/3 of all countries, with the global vaccination gap aiding the spread. Now, this map shows vaccine doses administered per 100 people across the world, and countries shaded in darker blue have a higher vaccination rate. In Africa, just 1.5% of the population has been vaccinated.
Ooh, god damn.
Nancy Ndanu died of coronavirus. She was 27 years old.
The problem which caused the death of my daughter is that, first of all, there was no enough vaccination in this country.
Like more than 98% of Africans, Nancy did not have access to a vaccine in her homeland of Kenya.
98%.
Until the vaccination rates are high, people will continue to die, people will continue to get sick, and we allow to exist the breeding ground of new variants that will make people sicker, that will spread to areas that we think are now safe, and we will erode not only the health of the populations that we're working with now, but we'll erode the health of the gains that we've made within countries such as the United States and Europe that do have those high vaccination rates.
The World Health Organization is highlighting the urgency of the problem.
Do you really accept 1.5% vaccination in Africa, while in some countries it's already 70%? The world is actually morally, epidemiologically, and economically is doing the wrong things.
There are huge discrepancies between vaccination levels. In Israel, most of the population has already received 2 jabs, and some are getting ready to receive a 3rd booster shot. Meanwhile, other countries like Kenya are lagging far behind.
You can kill it there.
That map was interesting.
So,
I kind of want to, if you want to pause it.
Map was so interesting. If we go back to the map, I'd love to see it still on the map, dude. The map was so fascinating. But it just puts the conversation in the context a little bit, man, because, you know, here we are in the United States and we're fighting with our neighbor over whether or not they've gotten vaccinated, really acting like that's the biggest thing facing you. And I know it feels like that because it's proximity, right? But you got to remember, this whole thing started in China. So it's not like it can affect you from all the way across the world. It's not just your neighbors, right? And then so it's so crazy to me how I mean, obviously because it's available to us, and so you feel like we have the responsibility. But I also think that there's not enough conversation being said about getting these vaccines to other people. Like, you know what I mean? You're more concerned with trying to convince me to get the vaccine, who's never going to fucking get it because I don't want it. And like I said, I'm in that staunch 20% that there's just no way you can convince me. But you'd rather spend your energy and time trying to do that than get it to these people who are really dying and want it and need it.
Yeah, they would love to have it.
They would,
interesting here,
line up.
Look at this. There seem to be 2 whole countries in Africa that are
never even
completely
seen one.
gray. They don't have any vaccines.
Never
I don't know
even
what
seen a
countries these
vaccine.
are, but I mean, look at this.
Oh, but
Two
I think,
whole
isn't that
huge
the Congo
sections.
right there? Isn't that the Congo? Isn't that place?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure. I gotta look it up on a real map. But I'm pretty sure that place is one of the places where you can't. You remember how they were talking about this with the Bill Gates thing too, and he wanted to eradicate polio, but he couldn't get nothing in there. He couldn't get polio vaccinations in there because the war criminals and stuff would hijack them or sell them on the black market. They would just do all these things to disrupt them because it's so kind of lawless there that they can't get vaccines in there. It's weird.
It looks like half of Morocco, which that's essentially the Western Sahara Desert.
Yeah.
And down there next to the Congo is Tanzania.
Oh.
Okay.
But that is there's the Democratic Republic of Congo is that big blue one right next to it.
Right in the middle.
The middle
one,
yes.
Yeah.
And then right beside that is Tanzania. So you're talking about just 2 really hard to access areas of a lot of Africa is hard to access.
True.
Facts.
I'm more concerned about the entire Middle Eastern crescent. Like all of those countries, Syria, Iraq, Iran, the only one that looks like it's even vaccinated at all is Saudi Arabia, and that's about it. Like all the rest of them, Turkey, all those areas there, they just don't look like they have either the availability or the want.
Yeah. Well, because dude, I just came from Costa Rica, and the guys talked about that there. They said that it's just there is no vaccines there. They just don't. It's just not an option, and so that's why they still have really strict mask policies and stuff like that. And,
that's so interesting. I wonder, I don't know if the video, if we kept watching, if they said why. I doubt it, because normally videos like that don't get too far into details.
Yeah.
But I think, on the one hand, you could say, well, they probably don't have a lot of vaccines because the medical establishment in the country, once they send out the blueprints, if you will, of the vaccine, they're actually required to make them themselves.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
Okay, so yes, if you want to go play this, there is a part where they say that, because I was about to say, I was like, it's fucking simple. I ain't got no fucking money. But
right,
no,
that's because as soon as they said oh, they're lagging behind, and I was looking at that lab, I was like, well, that lab looks like it's got some serious underfunding
I thought
problems.
The same thing.
You brought up a huge point though, because in this somewhere they talk about how nations like us have pledged to donate 1 billion vaccines or something like that, right? But we won't give away the patents. So we won't they won't make any leniencies on the patents so that people can make their own vaccines, right? No. Yeah,
it's like, why aren't you helping Africa? Money.
Money.
We need some more money.
But it's crazy because not only do they it's funny, they'll donate, they'll donate a little bit, but they're not going to give away the ability to generate the revenue.
Fuck that's that. Giving you $100 as opposed to giving you the printing press. And
almost makes it feel like too, they want to keep safeguarded what exactly goes into the virus or into the vaccine.
Back to the romanticized nanobots.
Yeah. But you know what I'm saying?
I have to say though, if there's any countries that I assume would not Africa is very low on my thought level. I would not assume any country in Africa would be putting nanobots in there. If they can't even develop their own version of the vaccine, I highly doubt they have nanobots to be like, hey, we got this vaccine, now we can put some of our fancy nanobots in there.
No, it's not that, but it's just saying they'll quickly be the ones to raise their hand and say, yo, there's nanobots in this, by the way, if y'all didn't know.
I didn't think about it that way. They might point out something that's in it that they don't want other people to know.
As the patent becomes widely accessible, I don't know how accessible it is now. I don't know. Maybe I could Google the exact formula for the vaccine right now. I have no idea. But from what it seems like it's probably like, Auntie May's secret sauce. You know what I mean? It's like, you know what goes in the stew, but you don't know what their secret sauce is.
Yeah, it's the 7 herbs and spices.
Yeah.
Right? And I feel like
21
is probably a lot like that. You know generally what's in it, but the patented part that we developed, we get to keep that a secret.
And they're all different.
Hey, well, I mean, that's why baking is so hard, because you have to get that shit precise. Everybody knows there's flour, there's eggs, there's milk. Like, it's really, like, the ingredients in a cake aren't really that complicated, and there aren't that many. It's just the fact that you can't put too much of one thing in there, or you'll fuck the whole thing up.
So, but it's money. It's money. That's the reason why they don't have it. It is money.
Of course.
And that's so fucking whack. It's so whack.
I wonder what kind of deal Pfizer and all them got, like when, because I mean, this shit came out quick, and they were 100%. Like, yo, we need to get a guarantee.
Yeah, Operation
on this bitch.
Warp Speed. So I mean, like, when the federal government is like, all right, everybody, fucking tighten up your belt. It's time to go, and we got to get this done as fast as possible. They were slinging that cash.
Oh yeah, tons.
Slinging that.
Well, I mean, just from a negotiating standpoint, like that, the pharmaceutical companies have all the leverage. They have all the leverage in that negotiating room. Like, there's no way that you don't come out of that with a great deal.
Yeah, not only do these companies control, like, through lobbyists, control the laws that are made, they're also, like, the #1 advertiser.
Yeah.
Like, every fucking commercial
Which is
like,
crazy, considering there's only a handful of countries that you can actually advertise pharmaceuticals
I was going to say, we're one of the only countries that allows it, and we also are just inundated with it. It's like, do you have HIV and are gay and want to continue having sex? Take this pill. Are you a woman over 50 who has a dry pussy and really wants to have sex all the time? Take this pill. Like, the shit that I see on fucking television is insane.
Yeah, it's true. But
it's dead ass.
It's weird to me because it's the same thing we're talking about with the Lollapalooza, and also with Mac, when you were even trying to bring up the point about, is your government actually trying to protect you or help you? And it's like,
and they're not.
Dude,
just in case, just FYI,
it's trying to sell you shit.
It's just obvious, and this is the thing that makes me sketch, man. If we're really facing a nationwide crisis, a worldwide crisis, and it's that bad, then how the fuck is how is this vaccine still get to be profited from? Right? Like, shouldn't it just be free and automatic? Shouldn't the governments, the UN should have got together and made the fucking goddamn vaccine then?
You're talking one world government shit. That's very apocalyptic.
That's true.
Evangelical
New World Order, baby.
Evangelical Christians don't fuck with that.
But don't you feel though? But how can we trust Johnson & Johnson and Moderna and fucking Pfizer? Like, why did they get contracts to do it if it's
I would agree with you that
national concern?
A global approach would have been better. I agree with that. We can't have a global approach in our global society because we're so partisan. Americans are partisan against the UK, against India, against China.
I don't give a fuck about that though, but I'm just saying, like, fine, then why didn't we do it ourselves? Why didn't the Fed just make the damn vaccine? Why would they?
Well, they did.
Why is there still a priority on making money, right? That's my thing. If you were sick and dying, right? You're sick and dying. How much do you care about making money? You don't. Like,
None.
What's money to you if your life is at risk?
The people that make the medicine are the ones that want the money.
Yeah, but that's the thing, though, is like
their life
they
is
have
also
to
at risk.
Yeah.
But it's not, though. I mean, if you run a pharmaceutical company, is your life really at risk?
But it's not, though. No, that's my point, though. But it's not, though. They're on the news, and they're trying to convince the entire world that your life... President Biden looked you in the face and said, you don't gotta die.
Yeah.
Right? So it is a life risk, right? I'm looking at it from a global standpoint, but somehow the globe is still prioritizing making money, though. And that doesn't equate to me, because it just doesn't work like that. If you're really concerned, and if this is really a big deal, and people are really dying and all these things, then why? Because it's not like you don't have other ways to make money. It's not like you don't have other medicines. You see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, but that's the point, though, is that you're looking at the wrong people. You're like looking at the politicians, asking them, why are you needing to make money? But it's not the politicians making the money from the vaccine. It's the handful of pharmaceutical companies who are the people who make the vaccine.
But you're pointing to the cruelty of the situation, that these handful of companies are essentially letting people die for profits.
Yeah, I'm not even.
That's kind of their whole business.
I'm not trying to point it in any hands, though, right? Like, I'm not. It's not any one particular hand that I'm trying to say. I'm just trying to say, as a group, as a humanity, right?
Yeah, like one human to another human.
Right. I'm trying to take it to this more altruistic, all one place, right? But I'm just saying, like, if you're trying to convince me that I need to get vaccinated because it's for the good of the whole, right? It's for the good of the whole. I need to do that. I need to wear my mask because it's for the good of the whole.
But you have to buy it from me.
But yeah, you know what I'm saying? But they're allowed to profit, and that's not for the good. Like, you know what I'm saying? 1.5% in Africa. 1.5%. Yeah. So it's like, I don't understand how they're not forced to, well, you got to give away all the vaccine because it's for the good of the whole. I don't get, we got to make sacrifices. But Moderna, Pfizer, and all of them, no. We get our bucks. Still.
Yeah, well, this is why Lollapalooza is allowed to go on. This is why they, that really famous case from the summer of last year where I think it was like the pineapple, someplace in LA. It was a restaurant in LA, and the woman went viral for the video that she posted about it.
I'm losing everything. Everything I own is being taken away from me. And they set up a movie company right next to my outdoor patio, which is right over here.
Angela Marsden, owner of Pineapple Hill Saloon and Grill, outraged and emotional, posting this video on social media after she saw production tents and tables set up in a parking lot just a few feet from the outdoor dining area she's not allowed to use.
They have not given us money and they have shut us down. We cannot survive. My staff cannot survive. Look at this. Tell me that this is dangerous, but right next to me as a slap in my face, that's safe. This is safe.
But she owns this restaurant. She spent like $80,000 outfitting this section of her parking lot to be outdoor dining. And then it was when that Sherry Cool woman or whatever, she said no to outdoor dining, and then she went and had dinner that night outdoors. Yeah, and like in Santa Monica, she was like, yeah, there's not going to be any more outdoor dining, and that takes effect 2 days from now. And then immediately went from that meeting to go eat outdoors. Right. But they shut this woman down. She had put all this money into it. They said, no, you can't do outdoor dining anymore. And then literally the next day, there was a movie studio that set up hundreds of people's worth of tents and tables because they were shooting a movie there. And so in the exact same parking lot, it was medically unsafe for her to sell food to people, but it was totally cool for this giant movie studio who gave the California state government tons of money to feed hundreds of people outside in the exact same parking lot. And so that's the thing. It's like they don't give a shit about your life. They give a shit about their wallets.
It's about the dollars. And that's where I'm at with it too. You want me to get the vaccine? Make it free for everybody. You know what I mean? Like sell it off. Like don't give out the
not politics free where you just tax me on the back end. Like free.
Like when that's how I'll know we're really at a crisis out here. You know what I mean? Like I feel like that's when you can tell, because like I said, for you, it would work exactly like that. You care about money. I know I care about making money, dude. Even as I'm sitting here sick with COVID, I'd be trying to like get my grind on, right? So I get it, but it also changes when your life is really a threat. You know what I mean? You're not thinking about like, dude, Pablo Escobar, when he was on the run, he burned his money to stay warm. You know what I mean? Like you're not thinking about that dollar when you're really a threat. You know, so it's like that's how I feel like I know. Like, you know, you can pull the fire alarm all day long, but I'll know that I'll see the fire when the money stops like becoming a priority. You know, it just doesn't make any sense.
Facts. Yeah. And I mean, this is the problem with like the way that the political system in our government, but in many, many governments all around the world is set up. You know, like these politicians have the best healthcare you can get. These pharmaceutical CEOs have the best healthcare you can get. There is no danger for them, really. Like, name me one politician that's died of COVID.
I can name you a politician that sold off shares because of COVID before we had the news that COVID was a real thing.
Was that Pelosi?
Yep. It was Pelosi.
It was Pelosi, yeah. I'm going to look up, has any politician died from COVID?
That's a spicy question to be putting in the Google.
Well, you know, luckily it's not my Google.
I like it.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in a future episode, about how your search bar could get real spicy.
Let's see here.
There's a list of officials and candidates.
I bet you this is a short list. This page covers the death, diagnoses, and quarantines of political incumbents, candidates, and government officials that resulted from COVID-19. It also covers individuals confirmed to have been tested and found not to carry COVID-19. Okay, let's see here.
That's public information.
Go up to those links. That's where they are.
Oh,
You have to
okay.
find the one of the dead ones.
Statistics of diagnosed officials and candidates.
The second one.
Here we go. Okay. Let's just click on Texas. Oh, here we go. Tested positive.
Yeah, I don't see any so far that
I don't see
died.
any. See, tested positive.
They're not. And these are old fat guys too, so it's weird.
Yeah, like
it's weird.
I don't see any deaths.
A lot of them smoking cigars and drinking scotch and just being fat and out of shape and everything else under the sun, and yet still just big chilling. I mean,
Look at this. This is funny. Jayapal announced that she had tested positive for coronavirus after sheltering with Republican colleagues who said she refused. She said refused to wear masks during the January 6th breach. None of these.
I saw a
other
death.
ones say
Go
that.
down.
Where?
Wright died from complications related to COVID-19.
Ronald White. Let's find out who the fuck you are.
Hmm.
An old fat white dude.
Yeah, one of them.
One guy. That was a long list.
Hey, at least they broke the vulnerable. I mean, you know what I mean? At least there's one. I mean, that sounds terrible to say. At least one of them died. You know? But,
kill the politicians.
He was probably killed by the Clintons.
But it definitely kills our... I'm just saying.
This video's definitely getting pulled now.
Yeah. It definitely kills that theory that, they can't.
That's so funny.
It's interesting.
So, yeah, I mean...
Dude, before we wrap this up, though, I would love to throw in some of my personal anecdotes with it.
I want to hear about it.
Tell us about your experience, Rob.
I've talked about a little bit of the things the epiphanies that I came to. You know what I'm saying? But first of all, I'll tell you, it wasn't really that bad. Now, obviously, it's very interesting disease because it hits everybody so differently, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so there's a laundry list of symptoms. Like I said, all the way to like neurological shit that can happen to you and stuff. So
lose your taste.
You know what I mean? Like, and that didn't happen to me. So I probably would say, given all accounts, I probably had a really mild version of it. But I mean, it laid me out for a couple days, and then now, as you guys see, I'm back on the podcast. Just with pretty much like a raspy throat. I still got a couple more days in quarantine, but so that was my first takeaway from it. I was like, man, it's really not that bad. Secondly, I can't remember what the other one that I was gonna fucking say. The whole reason I brought this up. Damn.
All right, give it a second.
Hold on. Yeah,
the neurological shit started.
The neurological COVID damage. It's gonna be the running joke now. You're gonna get fucking sick of that.
Yeah, every time.
Hey, but I saw that.
Scrambly COVID brain.
That was something that scared me about it, right? Like, is to find out that you get this like permanent brain fog, where people really do be having confusion and a lot of neurological shit can stick with you, through it. So I'm pretty sure I got the Delta variant. I mean, I can't say that for a fact or anything, but this is the one anecdote that I was going to make. I remember it just hit me. I got the Delta variant. I remember I told you my daughter had started having those weird symptoms, and that was the first time I really got worried about it, right? So I called the doctor and asked them some questions, and they took my information, right? Like, they took her name and her... Now, I'm just talking to a nurse on the phone, so it's like I'm not coming in to the doctor or anything like that.
Right.
But I remember they asked me for her name and her birthday, and then my name and my birthday, and our zip code, and I was like, "What the fuck are you asking me these questions?" You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm always sketch anytime anybody's asking for information, but
I'm asking you for answers.
You know what I'm saying? At the time, I was like, but then it hit me that they are putting me into some type of poll, or like some type of
sort
data,
of system,
right?
Mm-hmm.
It's some type of data harvesting or contact tracing, as they've talked about too. But I thought that it was interesting that up until that point, and had that not happened, I would have gotten COVID, been healthy, and nobody would have ever known. Like, I would not be a statistic out there at all. Jessica, when we all got sick, rather than all of us go get tested and stuff, I just sent Jessica to go get tested. Right? Jessica was like, I'll go get tested. And then, we'll pretty much know if I'm positive, we all got it, right? Because we all have the same symptoms and are sick same way. So she probably got cataloged somewhere as a positive COVID number. But then here I am and Brody, and well, now she got reported too, but we would have gotten completely under the radar. And so that did lead me to the fact that, man, I bet you these numbers are a lot larger than they show up on your Google searches and in your data.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Because I start thinking about like how many other like hardworking, just keep your head down people who are just not trying to be on the radar at all. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of dudes out here who are going to get sick and they're never going to ever complain or go to a doctor or say anything to anybody. They're going to get sick, they're going to get healthy, and they're going to get back on about their business.
Or let's just take this just 6-7 months ago when asymptomatic people was like all the rage. Like you had to go get tested and you had to make sure that you were okay because you could have it and spread it but not be symptomatic at all. And so it's so funny. Like I can't remember if it was this new mask mandate. I remember watching a video earlier today when I was setting up the studio, and they were talking about how in some of the data that the CDC was using for some recent announcement, they basically said that they had an assumption in that data that they were making their conclusions based off of, that this other scientist guy was like, that's a ridiculous assumption to have. They assumed that 50% of like the COVID cases had been reported or something like that. And he was like, are you out of your mind? 50%? Like that's ridiculous. That's a ridiculous assumption. Like no scientist worth their salt would assume that 50% of the cases have been reported.
Not to mention the fact that we don't trust them, but there are numbers coming from China and India that we have no fucking clue how relevant those numbers really are.
No idea.
Because you want to talk about work ethic, people in China who might have gotten this, who tried to work through it, are a real number. Like the asymptomatic people who just worked or had minor symptoms. And you're talking about a society that just like forces you to work.
Yeah, there's no option. You're gonna work.
And it's really strange when you think about it too, because the when I look at the world meter thing and like the ranking of like, dude, I mean, we're number one, and we're beating India, who has like 1 billion people. You know what I'm saying? Like the population doesn't make sense. So it's like when you look at those, like who's in this top 5 and stuff and who's not and different things like that, it just, you get to thinking like, man, we're off on our numbers for sure. Who knows how far they're off? What if they really are trying to cover up the fact that they leaked the goddamn thing? Then they would definitely be encouraged to lie about their numbers.
Especially if they were like literally like building burn pits in India that we know about, and mass burials in these places, like because of satellite images. Like that's really scary stuff.
Yeah, and then when people bring up the fact like, oh, like China and India have way less cases than we do, but but we have such a small population compared to them, and I'm like, that's good old American freedom for you right there. Messy, dangerous freedom.
Dangerous American freedom. So true, man.
Yep, that's how it goes.
Because even
the three of us are a good representation of that messy American freedom.
Yeah, and even Dr. Pastides, or the doctor that I keep referencing, who had that really good idea, he also said that too.
Whose name we cannot remember,
right? Because you forget that we are 50 states. Like we're not like we're a country, but that country is just united 50 states. So every state has this options to like do things differently and be unique in their own approach to these things. So
man, I found out yesterday, or was it yesterday? It was a couple of days ago. I found out that there was recently like a big right-leaning kind of libertarian Republican festival or like conference or something like that. Like a big, I don't know what you would call it. It's not like a concert. I don't know. A bunch of fucking Republicans and libertarians got up to speak, and people bought tickets to go see it. And it was held in South Dakota. And one of the guys that I like, Dave Smith, he went and he was like the MC for the whole thing. And he was talking about how the governor of South Dakota, I can't remember her name now, but she gave a speech. And the opening line to the speech was, "Welcome to South Dakota, the only state in America that had no mask mandates and no lockdowns ever." And I was like, holy shit, they didn't lock down anything? And sure enough, South Dakota was like, hey, yo, business as usual, baby. Like, even in Vegas, we talked about in the gambling episode last week, we talked about how, even the casinos were closed for a few weeks.
Yeah, for a little
South
while.
Dakota didn't close shit. They were like, we are open for business.
I mean, they're so spread out.
24/7, 365.
Yeah. And I guess they were probably just like, y'all know what the fuck it is. This ain't North Dakota. We from the South.
We South Dakota,
South
baby.
Side Dakota.
Yeah, and they were like not having it. I thought at least in the very beginning when the 2 weeks to flatten the curve, I thought everybody got in on that. But apparently South Dakota was like,
when your population is like 80,000.
You're bringing up a good point. Yes.
I know.
So
I'm just making a number. That's a very low number. I'm sure it's somewhere in the.
But now I want to see.
It's sparse. But dude, you hit on a good point, because one thing I noticed too, very quickly when the mask mandates came back out, your staunchly Republican governors were immediately along party lines with that shit, right? And it lends. It's something I wanted to bring up when we were talking about how your politicians don't adjudicate from a place of science and objective truth. It's from what is expected of me as a party leader, right? And so it's like I said, they with like almost like clockwork, like Florida, Texas, Arizona, they came out immediately and were like, look, we're not doing masks no more. Like, we're fucking done with that shit. And it's like, okay, fine, cool. Like I said, I expected that, but it's weird that it's like those guys. You didn't see like, two Democrats over here and a couple Republican, over here. It's like almost like clockwork. Like Republicans were anti-mask. Like libertarian, pro-mask.
Yep.
It's weird, dude.
Yeah. So I think that was a pretty good breakdown. I think we can probably move into some thoughts and conclusions of where we go from here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm all for that, because this has been a topic we've been talking about now since the inception of this podcast.
Yeah, literally the first episode was, we mentioned
the
it.
riot. Yeah, we talked about it a lot in the early days.
Yeah.
And because it was a major thing. Like I said, we were discussing mask mandates.
Started in the lockdown, so
it did.
Yeah. It makes sense.
And we've come a long way in those 600 some odd days, and we're coming up on our anniversary. 2 years with COVID, guys.
Yeah.
2 years.
Crazy.
And that to me,
2 years to flatten the curve.
Yeah, I was gonna say the fact that it is not only still around, but we're seeing Travis Pastrana double mutation X game tricks. Like, how much this is going to go on forever. I am convinced. Like, my takeaway from this conversation is that we're going to be talking about COVID with our grandkids. Because this shit is just outrageous how it's just, we don't know we don't know if it came from a lab. We don't know how many variants or mutations. Like, we've come a long way. We're going to continue down this road for a very long time. That's my takeaway from this.
Yeah. Just to make a point on what you said a second ago, because 1918 is about the only time that we could really reference or recently of having some type of pandemic, and theirs lasted for 2 years with 4 successive waves. So I mean, we might be right on line with exactly. I mean, like you said, it
but
could
with the
last
technology
forever,
of 1918, we're literally 100 years into the future, and we can't fucking bust this shit down.
We couldn't even beat their record. I mean,
yeah, come on.
That is just a testament to how dangerous COVID-19 is compared to whatever
this ain't your grandpappy's smallpox.
Yeah.
Yeah, but my takeaway
serious shit.
My takeaway is definitely that my views have changed a lot, and some stayed the same since I got it. I definitely allowed it to change my perceptions on it. I think you're always kind of like that. You're so I mean, it's easy to talk about until it happens to you, type shit. So it's like. In a way, I was really grateful to have got it, because I knew that I talk about it a lot, and I think to have experience with it now and be able to know more about what I'm talking about, I guess, But with that being said, it changed my outlook on how I look at this stuff a lot, and I'm still stuck with this skepticism that I can't shake. Like I said, that just kind of has been built into me now. But I it's given me this empathy that I wish everybody had, where it's like, we've talked about this a lot. Like, John got the vaccine. That's great for him. You know, my parents got the vaccine. That's great. You know, and I love that my friends and my family, I'm not getting it. And they're not like, well, I can't fuck with you anymore. Or like, you know what I mean? Like putting unnecessary pressure on me from being on this side. And I'm not criticizing them or making fun of them for it. You know what I mean? I wish that all of us would get to this idea where we really think of it as like an individual choice. You know, it's like, it's your choice, and shift our focus less on trying to change people's choice and more to making it available for everybody to choose. Right. Like, I think that our bigger concern right now is that people in Africa and these other third world countries are not even getting a choice. And we're over here, you know, concerning ourselves with trying to force other people to make the choice
American privilege.
to. And I think, right, you know, and I think that that's what's really got me fucked up. And you know, of course, I wouldn't be me without saying I still got my eyes on you motherfuckers. I don't know yet what's up with this. You know, I don't know, but y'all are sketching me with your policies and your mandates and your sneaky persuasions. It's like the more that they want me to get in the mix, the more it worries me. I'm like, why is this so important to you? You know.
Quick point before we go to Mac's takeaway. I just want to say that, you know, in the idea of risk mitigation, being that like, well, if you get the vaccine, you know, you have a lower risk or whatever. Like, there is still a risk that the vaccine they gave me is full of fucking nanobots or whatever. You know, insert whatever it could be, or gives me lasting side effects. You know, like
you could have been one of those people that got one of those blood clots.
Yeah, there is inherent risk. I might never be able to get pregnant.
Might be at a higher risk for Alzheimer's in 20 years. Don't even know.
Yeah, true. I could have early onset dementia caused by COVID nanospikes.
Don't even know.
We'll call it Biden.
But what was your point?
Gets the
Biden disease.
Yeah.
It's onset Alzheimer's based on the vaccine. Biden disease.
Risk is out here.
Yeah, for me, the takeaways are, I'm a little bit, again, like I hesitate to say worried, because like, I'm not really worried in like the sense that I'm afraid of what they might do, but it's definitely, I look at people that use that sort of authoritarian language like Bill de Blasio did in a different light, you know, like I already kind of didn't like Bill de Blasio, mostly just because he's like a fake Italian, but now I'm like, now you're a fake Italian and you're an authoritarian shitbag, like, dude, that's 2 strikes, buddy, you're almost out. But and then also, you know, just being the fact that seeing my brother and his wife and my niece get it and everything, like I always knew that it was a real disease and that it was really killing people out here. Like, I wasn't out here like, oh, this shit's fake, it's a government ploy or whatever, false flag shit. But I will say this, I want to talk specifically to and directly to Susan Wojcicki, the CEO of YouTube. I know that you have friends in the government. If you want to make an offer to get some of my blood or my plasma to figure out why I'm so immune to this shit, I will be willing to listen to very generous offers.
Yeah, for real.
And that's all I have. That's all I have to say about that.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was like, damn, I almost want to throw in a quick segment of like, how's Mac immune? Like, explain.
It's so weird. Like, I feel like it's funny. Like, I'll have to give like a little update. Yeah, because I'm getting tested tomorrow, so I might just be an asymptomatic person, which wouldn't be that weird. Apparently, there was a lot of them. But if I go to this fucking test tomorrow and they tell me that I don't have COVID, I'm like, well, shit. Like, how does that happen? Like, I live in this house. Like, I've kind of, like Rod's been joking, like I've kind of been trying to get it. Yeah. I've kind of been trying to get it this whole time.
I feel like I'm weird like that. I've seen him more since I had COVID than I did when I didn't.
Yeah, like I'll be up in his room and like talking to him, just like hanging out with him, her, like his wife, the kid. They're all in there coughing and stuff, and I'm just like hanging out.
There's a funny little COVID song I cut up with it between. It was like me and Rod and Max, like our different voices on our last episode on COVID. I had chopped up and made a little song out of it, and one of the clips was Mac going, "Just get the disease." It was like Rod going COVID, and then there was a cut where I'm saying some shit like about
play
going
the
and getting
at
eggs.
the end of this episode.
It's hard to
I
find.
will play it as the outro.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll put it in there.
We'll put it in there, but it's definitely got a great part where Max just get the disease.
Well, I mean, that's how you get immunity.
Yeah, no.
And again,
I'm hoping.
and again,
I don't even know if that's true.
The only reason I
Hopefully.
say something like that is because, statistically speaking, it is very unlikely that you will die from COVID-19. Now, that's just, unless you're like 80-something years old and you're obese and you've got all kinds of fucked up diabetes or whatever, like your chances are still higher. But there are things that you do in everyday life where the actual statistic chance of you dying from it are almost just as high, if not higher, than dying from COVID. Sure. And so it's like, and that's my only reason for not getting a vaccine. My only reason for not getting a vaccine is just because I'm 26 years old. I work out daily. I eat really good, like 80% of the time. And according to all of those factors, I am one of the least likely people to die, other than if you were under 18. You know how many people under 18 have died from COVID-19
and that's what'll make it so sensational.
Right, yeah. It's less.
Help but notice, I don't want to turn this to a whole other podcast, but I couldn't help but notice that they quoted that girl from the African thing. She was 27. I was like, man, thousands of people.
Did you see her in that dress though? She was a little bit big.
I was gonna ask you if they had
a little bit big.
I was gonna ask you if they had a vaccine that rolled out that made you immune from like motor vehicle crashes. Would you get it?
Nope.
No.
I was just thinking about it. It was like just because we keep kind of bringing up this idea of like heart disease kills people.
I don't even like to pay for insurance, buddy.
Yeah, I ride a bike, so like that really.
Auto insurance, let alone fucking sticking something in my goddamn body. I'm not with it.
Yeah, no. I got seatbelts.
I don't play just in case. I'll deal with that shit when it happens, motherfucker.
When it
just
happens,
like this COVID
shit.
I dealt with that shit when it happened.
I drive good.
Yeah,
I'm doing all right.
Oh, that's funny.
So yeah, but apparently it's less than 350 children out of I guess the subpopulation of children under the age of 18 in America is 75 million.
Before the Delta variant is switching the child game up, dog. Like children are actually getting fucked up by the Delta variant. I heard of something called MISC. Like they get this like secondary like
miscellaneous symptoms.
No, but, yeah, essentially, right? That's so funny. It's like multi-symptom inflammation something. Anyways, just saying.
Animals too.
Animals too. Yeah, animals too. So those
we had to eradicate those minks.
Those numbers might be changing with the Delta variant, and the fact that being young,
they got a long way to catch up though.
I'm just saying, being young might not be a protection anymore. I don't know.
We'll see. Bring it on, COVID.
I'm
coming for the belt, bitch.
Yeah,
I'm waiting for Paw Patrol to show up at the White House and start convincing toddlers to get their fucking vaccination.
I can't wait for COVID-7 when like the sirens are going on out the windows and like there's like a bang at the door. Gotta get out there! Are you vaccine card? We're like, all right, folks, this is our last time.
We're broadcasting on a CB radio. We're like, this is COVID-17, guys.
We're on like some dark net channel or some shit. It's the only last place we can talk about it.
Putting you on broadband.
Book of Eli shit.
Yeah, that's so funny. By candlelight. We're just writing letters to our subscribers.
Telegram.
We're still okay.
Oh, man. Well, this has been COVID-3 and Internet. We just want to say thank you so much for joining us today. And we really appreciate all the support throughout this time. Mm-hmm. And, hopefully stay safe out there. If you want to get a vaccine, get a vaccine. Yeah. If you don't come crying to us.
If you have some questions, I'm sure there'll be a sticker directly beneath us.
Yeah, you can check out all of the corrections to our false information. I do want to say that we are not doctors.
Yes.
None of us have degrees in medical anything. Mm-mm. So, this is an entertainment podcast. And we just have a slight informational bent.
Yeah, and they're going to be updating all the different misinformation below you, so just click on that.
Yeah, it's going to be right below us, right above the description.
Correct. You'll find the sticker somewhere here on this.
Yeah. Who knows? Maybe this video is not even actually on the internet, but if it is, you'll see a sticker.
Click on the link somewhere around me. All right. God. Hey, talk to you guys again soon.
Peace.
Peace.
Everyone be scared. Fuck that, I ain't putting no goddamn mask on. I'm going in the Harris Teeter and getting my eggs.
I'm the only dude wearing a mask.
Fuck that, I ain't putting no goddamn mask on.
Go get the virus.
I'm going in the Harris Teeter getting my eggs.
The only dude.
Fuck that, I ain't putting no goddamn mask on.
COVID.
I'm going in the Harris Teeter getting my eggs.
The only dude.
Fuck that, I ain't putting no goddamn mask on.
COVID.
I'm going in the Harris Teeter getting my eggs. Everyone be scared.
COVID. Go get the virus. Only dude wearing a mask. COVID.
I'm going in the Harris Teeter getting my eggs.
The only dude.
Fuck that, I ain't putting no goddamn mask on.
COVID.
I'm going in the Harris Teeter getting my eggs. Everyone be scared.
COVID. Go get the virus.